ready for takeoff.
We are cleared for takeoff.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Time to take flight in your community and in your life. This is Audio Airstrike.
Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Everett Hall McNeil, and this is Audio Airstrike. We want to thank you guys for listening to another episode. With me, I have a familiar friend of the show, a familiar face. She has been through a journey, spiritually, mentally, physically, making herself better, and I brought her on the show today to talk about identity. And with me at this time, familiar friend of the show, none other than Valentina Lopez. Thank you so much for coming on. We appreciate you.
I'm so excited to be on the show. As I was just right now, the last time that I talked, well, the first time we talked was about Kanye for about 3 hours, and that was about 4 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
About my own evolution, like spiritually, mentally, physically, everything that you just mentioned. And I'm like, what a great topic to like get online and talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm kind of curious as to what you've been going through and just how you've made it to the other side. So kind of give me kind of this summary of basically some of the stuff that you've been through and some of the stuff that you've done to persevere.
Clarifying question. When you say other side, what do you mean by the other side?
I would say probably mentally, physically, spiritually, where are you at?
Okay. I am still trying to figure out. Okay. Long story short, I think my spiritual journey started about 4 years ago when I was actually physically having a lot of anxiety and panic attacks. And conventional medicine was just telling me that the only way to kind of get through it was through taking medication. And something inside of me, which I now know is my intuition, kept saying like, no, there's like something more to this. There's something more that you need to be doing. I found a spiritual therapist who actually focused on Reiki, which is an energy healing method to clear out energy in like your energy centers. And we dove into the Val psyche. So like why I think how I think, why I react how I react. And long story short, we just identified that we are all adult children behaving from our trauma, our inner child wounds. So my focus was to identify all those wounds, transmute them through healing, letting them go, addressing them with the people, if appropriate, and working on becoming a better person. Like I don't need to identify with whatever I went through. So after I went through that emotional purge, let's say, I started to really think about how I was feeling physically. And that's where I would say like my fitness journey started, where I'm like, okay, are the foods that I'm eating making me feel good? Is alcohol making me feel good? Are my friendships making me feel good? And so I just started asking myself, is everything that I'm doing in alignment with the person that I want to be? And so through healing the emotional aspect of myself, I started peeling more layers of the onion, and I'm still on that journey. I don't think it ever ends, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I definitely understand that because I feel like people say that when you are a certain age, you fully have an understanding, you're an adult, you have to take care of these things, you have to do this. And truth be told, at that age, at 20, 21, 22, even at 32, you don't have all the answers still. You're still trying to figure things out as you go. You're still trying to map out what you're trying to do. I remember being in high school and being one of the few people, no shade to anybody else, but being one of the few people that actually knew what they wanted to do straight out of high school. And the issue that I notice is that when somebody gives the impression that they have it figured out, there isn't as much backlash. But when somebody does not have it figured out, we, and especially in American culture, we tend to frown upon or shame somebody from not having it figured out at a certain age. It's so convoluted and unrealistic to assume that by a certain age, I have to accomplish this. Everybody's journey is different. Everybody's upbringing is different. The opportunities are not the same. Geographically, where you live at, there are certain opportunities that are open for other people and are necessarily not open for people in your area. So those are a plethora of factors. And also, I could get into it deeper. We're even going into generational curses that may be hindering you. You don't even realize it. Like, these are one of the things. I'm not trying to say use that as an excuse to stay mediocre, to stay in the same spot. But what I am saying is we do have to have a sense of understanding that, okay, looking at this person's individual upbringing and background, where can this person excel at? Where can we help out? Instead of going, oh, he's a lost cause. Oh, she's a lost cause. Oh, this person's that. There's got to be some room to allow people to figure out what their identity is, I feel like, and their calling.
Yeah. That it makes me think of, you mentioned like the problem here in the United States and it being a societal like issue 100% because you're literally forced to think that you graduate high school, you go to college, you graduate with a degree, you have to find a husband, a partner, whatever, you have kids, and you have your entire life figured out. And there's a big thing that we always neglect, like your spiritual evolution, right? Everything's focused on material things and not your actual evolution as a human, as a spirit here, right? A lot of what I say is always going to be intertwined with like spiritual talk because that's just my energy. And I actually didn't have papers when I was a teenager. I wasn't going to go to college. My only option was to actually go back to Colombia. So I was one of those people who did not have the same opportunities. So it's just like, okay, I'm not going to do anything with my life. And it wasn't until my early 20s that I was able to go to college. And I was like, oh, all right, now what do I do? Right? But I had never developed that curiosity of like, what interests me? What do I like? Or anything like that because I was so stuck in like trauma thinking, right? So like just survival mode. I couldn't elevate anywhere else. And one thing about me, going back to like conventional living, I just questioned it all. I'm like, that can't be it. I'm like, most people in their like 40s, sorry, a lot of people who have not like really dove into like their psyche are miserable by the time they realize they've hit every milestone that you're supposed to hit. And it's like, I feel empty, right? You feel empty. You really haven't developed on an intellectual, spiritual, emotional level. But what's expected of you is for you to, find out what your career is by what? 18 years old when you're like going to college? You're a child at that age, emotionally speaking.
Mm-hmm. I think that in a lot of ways when we talk about this, right, what I'm noticing now is people are not given room to figure out what their identity is. People are not given the space, time, and understanding to research certain things before they identify with certain things. People are not given the opportunity and the time before they figure out what their identity is and before what they align themselves with that will actually become a factor into their identity. That they are forced into a certain level of bullying and tribalism, which forces that person to take on an identity that they don't have all the information for. Therefore, they still are saying regurgitated words that feel like it's being regurgitated. When you in it, you don't realize it's being regurgitated to you, especially if you didn't do the proper due diligence and the knowledge behind the words that you are saying. So now you have taken on an identity of stuff that you don't understand yet. And maybe you are not of the maturity and age to understand it. And now, because you have been thrusted and forced into it by other people that identify with it just for tribalism purposes, now, sooner or later, everything that you have stood by is now going to feel empty, and it's going to challenge your identity again. And some people are not equipped or ready to handle that. That's heavy. If I sit over here and I study a form of religion, if I just go based on what somebody tells me without doing my own research, without doing my own walk, without practicing these things myself, at that point I'm identifying with similar principles within that religion, but it don't hit home and I'm still feeling empty.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of people that identify with certain things. It could be religion. It could be sexual orientation. It could be this. It could be that. It could be your race. It could be this. It could be gender. And because you felt like if I don't identify with this, I'm going to feel left out. I don't feel like I'm a part of the in crowd. I feel like I have to do it because this is what's in now.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of y'all are into things because you were forced into it. You subconsciously forced yourself into identifying as such, but you never took time to really understand. And somebody forced their identity onto you for you to take on it without the proper knowledge and without the proper due diligence. That's a dangerous game that I'm seeing we playing in America. Because now, instead of giving everybody the room to study, it's okay for somebody to go, I understand this is what your identity is. My way of life, I just humbly disagree. We ain't got to have an issue. We can get to that. There's nothing wrong with that. But now, if I disagree with your religion, I'm this, that, and the third. If I disagree with people's lifestyle, it is hate. If I say I disagree with so-and-so, look, I just disagree with it. This is what it breeds. This is what happens when you have people signing up for identity that they didn't do the proper due diligence about, is this something that you really want? Is this for you? Is this actually for you? Or did you join it out of fear or frustration? Or you did it to be isolated? You want to know why people tend to be bullies in school? Because from a superficial standpoint, it comes with a lot of perks that when at that adolescent age you think are perks. You come off as popular, you come off as cool, this and that. There's a reason why people get the jokes off in bully. However, a lot of the time when you start unpeeling the onion, you realize that the people that are the bullies were at one point the people being bullied. Folks, the reason why I'm having this conversation is because a lot of y'all are identifying with stuff. And y'all went from the bullied to being the bully that is bullying other people into, if you have to identify with this or you're my enemy. That's a dangerous, when we don't take time to give people room to figure out what their identity is, these things happen. I said a mouthful there. I know it's a lot to unpack.
I know, because you brought up a lot of things. So like self-worth, right? Values, community, just because a lot of the herd mentality is because as the beings that we are, we're just here for connection, but people don't even understand what that means, because we don't mean sexual connection. We don't mean romantic connections. We just mean connection on a spiritual, energetic level. And a lot don't know what that means. And then when it comes to the herd mentality, right? What you said about giving people space to do their research so that they can properly identify with whatever it is they want to identify with, whether it's politically, religion related, whatever it is, dietary, who cares? I used to be I don't want to say the word argumentative, but I loved giving my point of view when it came to things, because I wanted to disagree with you and I wanted you to understand me. And then I realized, when I do this, I literally feel angry. The other person's not feeling my anger. I'm feeling that. And when I'm feeling angry, my blood pressure rises, my stomach hurts, I feel lightheaded. Why would I want to feel that? So I got to this level of, I give my opinion, and if somebody disagrees, We can agree to disagree, and it does not need to be a debate. It does not need to be a discussion, because I'm free to believe whatever I want and you're free to believe whatever you want. And at the end of the day, when we find out, we will get the answers or not to everything that we're sitting here discussing and tearing each other apart for, right? Unfortunately, in this country, it's all about division. It's all about division. And I think with people having a shorter attention span because of social media, because of their phones and, quick gratification, we don't have the time to research topics because we're so busy, looking for dopamine, because that's all these applications do for your brain, and B, we just want to fight. But going back to what you were saying about being labeled as such and such if you disagree with someone, that is because somebody truly doesn't know who they are, and they're looking for something to give them, as you were saying earlier, like power, right? I need to feel superior to you, and by me offending you, I'm going to feel a certain way. But that's because they don't really know who they are at the core, at their essence. Because when you I read somewhere, arrogance is loud and humility is silent. You move in silence. I don't know if you've ever noticed, but the loudest people in the room are the most insecure, are the ones that are actually screaming for help, attention, whatever that is. I'm losing my train of thought here because we said so much. Oh my God. Self-worth. That's connected to self-worth. Values. Okay, I took notes. So values. If you ask people, what are your core values? Most people do not know how to answer that. And so if you don't know how to identify what your core values in life are, then every decision that you make is just going to be based on whatever your ego is identifying with. Let me explain. So for me, a value could be transparency, which means that every connection that I have in my life, I hope that we have a level of transparency when we're communicating with each other, right? Loyalty. All I'm looking for is loyalty around me, and that's what I give people, one of my values. So once you identify those values, every single move that you make will be in alignment with those values. But a lot of people, you don't develop those skills, which goes back to the education system, to the school system. We don't learn about emotional development in school. We don't learn about these things that are actually going to help us in the real world post, let's say, college graduation. Like, what my experience has been with so many adults, and I'm in my 30s now, is that so many people who are even older than me have the emotional maturity of a 15 or 16-year-old in high school. And I'm like, wow, you can be very book smart and you have these degrees and whatnot, but when it comes to emotional intelligence, there is nothing there. And those are the people who then follow the crowd, follow the herd. It's that herd mentality, which then adds to the division in the country, adds to the finger pointing, all of that. I hope all of that makes sense because I also just said a lot.
No, it definitely does, because I look at it and it's something that's concerning to me, because it's one thing to have your own opinion, but it's another thing where you're just regurgitating
Yeah.
an opinion of somebody else's agenda. Like,
Yes.
I respect people that have their own thought processes, how they view things, regardless if I agree with them or not. I can respect it. I can respect it and keep it moving from there. So the issue that I think that we have now is everybody is quick to say what they identify as, but they don't know the weight. They don't know the weight and the gravity that carries. You say that you do this. Okay, well, how did you get to a place in your perspective where it led up to you doing that? And if the answer comes off surface to a degree, then I'm sitting there going, well, did somebody just give this to you and was like, hey, like, I'm not trying to force anything, but just, hey, maybe this will help you change your life, maybe, and just take this and do what you will with it? Or did somebody literally force their opinion on you, and it was so forceful that it was like you were held against your will verbally, to the degree where they are literally shoving their opinion down your throat, and you decided, okay, it's either I drown or I have to drink this. Which one is it going to be? You know what I mean? And that type of process and that type of way of doing things is only going to work for the short term, because if you have a community built of people that move that way, whatever system, whatever outlook on life that identifies with a certain thing, if it's standing on those type of principles, it's not going to last. If I come across somebody and their whole identity premise or point of view is this, that, and the third, and I turn around and I'm looking at, we don't want to admit it, but we look deep. We don't do surface level no more. We look deep at everything. Millennials down. We look at things deep, overly deep. It's just what it is. We just look at it overly deep. We look at everything overly deep. And the one thing that we always kind of crave and cherish is transparency and also honesty. Those are the two biggest things. You may not like my opinion, but if I'm honest and transparent about it, you can respect me. You may not like my point of views, but if I'm honest and transparent about it, and I come from a genuine place, you can respect me. There are people that are saying certain things and calling it, well, this is my identity, this is what I believe, and we are lacking in the honesty and transparency as to how individuals got there. We got people that'll get on social media and will dog a woman out just to dog women out. And then if you start peeling back the onion, they had 5, 6, 7 bad relationships with a person and qualities that they picked.
Yep.
You sitting over here, okay, you're dogging out people that necessarily don't share the same sexual orientation or the same sexual views as you do. That's fine. But when you start attacking somebody for saying, look, I disagree with blank, 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 and blank, that's just not of me. You calling them all these names, but then we peel back the onion and come to find out that you struggled throughout your whole childhood trying to figure out what you wanted to be. You felt like you had to go and kind of be promiscuous with several other people to try to figure out where to be loved at, where to be cherished at. What does this mean? What does that mean? But then to go on social media and then spew hatred because somebody disagrees with what you think gender and sexuality is. And I'm talking about, I've seen even straight people get attacked. And that's just, and look, that is one of the situations where knowing your identity is key, because anybody can tell you anything. If you are willing to be that naive and go with anything somebody tells you over social media, I'm sorry. Y'all are grown adults. I'm tired of seeing this. I'm tired of seeing this bully mentality, and I see it over every single fabric of different communities. Don't matter if it's race, religion, sexual orientation, gender. I'm tired of it. I'm just going to tell y'all this. Y'all don't like it, tough. You have to understand that you are an adult living in an adult world, and you're going to come across people that do not necessarily agree with the way you live your life. They can respect you all day long, but they're not going to agree with everything you do. I got people, I'm Facebook friends now. I see stuff and I'm like, now you know damn well you ain't supposed to be out there doing that. Literally.
Yep.
And I'm sitting over here like, that's their life. Of course I disagree with it, but that's their life. Like, but if I verbally say it out loud like I'm doing on this podcast and somebody's listening, Everett is blank, blank, blank. They get mad. Instead of understanding why I'm saying what I'm saying, they get triggered, they get mad, and then they go, he's this, that, and the third. Well, that tells me that you're not emotionally mature enough to understand why I'm saying what I'm saying.
Yep.
When I went to school, I was friends with people that did not share the same religious beliefs that I did, but I still garnered more respect even than some other Christians that they knew, because you know whatever, they were like, you know whatever, you carry a certain type of way that makes me respect Christians in a way I didn't respect them before. All because I was like, okay, you don't agree with what I believe. That's cool. It ain't got to be smoke. And I think nowadays, anytime I see somebody act that way, or I'll see this, it's another sign of lack of emotional intelligence. If you don't agree with this, blank, 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 unfriend me. I hate to break it to you. The world is not going to stop. The world is not going to stop on a standstill because somebody disagrees with your beliefs. And you also have to understand that you lack a certain level of emotional intelligence because you can't handle somebody disagreeing with you. I've looked at people in the face and told them what I disagree with them about. I disagree with blank, 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 blank for these reasons. And I don't come at it like, I'm not sitting over here going, oh, you idiots. Y'all sit over here, dude. I don't try to insult nobody. But I am going to just, if somebody asks me like, hey, do you agree with blank? I'm like, look, I don't have no smoke with these people, but these are my concerns. Like, we have to be emotionally intelligent enough to have these conversations. It's so bad that the people that really want to say what I'm saying on a public platform can't say it because they'll lose their job if they say it.
100%. I have more bullet points.
Go ahead, go on.
God, I love this. Let me go back to what you were saying in the beginning. One thing about humans is that we attack each other for having a difference in opinions. Like, one day I can say, I like the color green. The next day I may say, you know what, I don't like the color green. And I will be crucified for saying, oh my God, she doesn't like it anymore. How dare she not like it anymore? But she told us she liked it. We don't understand that people are meant to evolve, and that means having different thoughts every single day, every minute. Like, I'm literally not the same Val that I was 30 seconds ago because I'm feeling a different way that I was 30 seconds ago, and that's okay. So we really don't give each other enough space to hold change, right? We think we have to judge what everybody does. That just came to me because of something you said earlier, but I already forgot what you said, Everett, because we're saying so much. The men and women, because earlier you said something, and this could go a little bit off topic, but you said about like people going online and like shaming the opposite sex for whatever reason. I don't know if anybody's catching on in the agenda of like independent women this, and then like the men this, and like the men are too feminine or whatever it is. And it's this attack on men and women because everybody wants to prove how independent they can both be. And it's like, guys, and I'm not, when I say feminine energy and masculine energy, I don't mean it in a sexual way. There are different energies that both energies have and complement each other with, right? But there's something going on in social media where I swear to God, there is a narrative that they're trying to like shove down our throats that like women don't need men and that men don't need women. Yes, we do. Because let me tell you, like I did the whole independent woman thing, and I was like, I'm exhausted. I'm so tired. I need support. And I was so much in my masculine energy that I'm like, oh my God, I'm not even in my feminine energy anymore. And it's these narratives on social media where people just go, like you said, somebody could have been hurt by 3 women in their lives, and then they're like bashing all women, and vice versa, because women do the same exact thing, and we don't give people the benefit of the doubt. That's just driving me crazy, because I'm like, guys, you can literally be in a partnership that's like so healthy, but if you get out of your own way and stop listening to what other people are saying, like you're literally blocking this, right? Because whatever energy you give out, that's what you're attracting. So if you can't find something in alignment with you, it's because you're following this narrative, and it's the energy you're putting out. So that's my little rant for men and women. But let me go back to You said something about when people shove something in your face, basically, like if you grow up in that herd mentality of like, it could be religion. I'm going to use religion because that's kind of like what's more common that we see. Like people grow up identifying with a certain religion because, you know, that's what their family told them they should believe, and then they never questioned it. I have so many people in my life who are, my cat's lighting me out, who are, they identify as either Catholic or Christian or whatever. And I stopped being religious at a very young age. I think I was like 14 or 15, where I was like, a lot of this is not resonating with me for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm.
As I went on my spiritual journey and honestly understood that everything's like literally the same, everything's the same, and everybody's just arguing about whose religion is better or whatever, I was like, wow, I actually went from believing in nothing to believing in everything, which means like I literally believe in everybody's religion, and I don't think that anyone is better or one is right or one is wrong or anything like that. It's all the same. It's all the same beliefs, said differently, spoken differently, expressed differently. Um, but unfortunately, instead of people saying like I respect and I respected, they just fight with each other, and it's a I'm right and you're wrong thing. But again, when you see how they behave with other people, it's not aligned with the values of what that religion is supposed to be. And I'm like, what are you even doing? I hope that makes sense. I can elaborate if you need me to.
Yeah, I mean, I think it definitely does, because we tend to. I think the best leaders tell somebody, "Hey, this is what I took from this. I want you to study this yourself
Mm-hmm.
and tell me what you thought about this." The best leaders equipped other people on their journey
With the
and
tool.
with a tool, and also don't hold the people back.
Mm-hmm.
When see part of the journey to actually have an emotional intelligence and actually knowing what your identity is being around somebody. It could be a mentor, a leader that will push you, educate you, give you the tools, but also does not just pull you back for their selfish game to get ahead.
100%.
And here's the trick. Here's the key, and here's the thing that some leaders that do this don't understand. Your legacy grows larger if the very people that you helped out ascend and become leaders themselves, because they point back to you saying, hey, this person helped me when I was doing XYZ. This person helped me when I was doing this, that, and such. The reason, I'll give you a perfect example. I'll use something that I'll use an example that everybody can relate to. James Brown. James Brown has influenced every bit of 90s hip hop, has influenced Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson turns around and influences the whole entire music scene. Arguably, every time there is a greatest of all time argument, Michael Jackson is right up there. But he was influenced by James Brown, which makes the legend of James Brown grow and get larger and is at this legendary status. It's because he's influenced so many people. Beyonce is doing that now for this generation. Taylor Swift, to a degree, is doing that for this generation. These are people that are influencing other people. Where Beyonce is right now, you see a direct influence from Michael Jackson, which just makes his legacy get larger. He didn't purposely turn around and hold people back that we know about.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's an example of, if I turn around and uplift and just give the game away and just uplift and give people advice and not be pushy with what my identity is and stuff of that nature, what my views are. If somebody walked away with the tool, equip themselves to the point that they are standing firm, their emotional intelligence is high, and they can tell you directly what they identify with and why they identify with, and it's mature, That is all that people ask. That is all that we ask. Is we want people, we want leaders, we want people to have a strong sense of emotional intelligence, because yeah, because at some point, like, you need that when we have to figure out certain things within society, when we have to figure out, what's the best practice for this, or what's the best practice for that. Like, we have to have a degree of emotional intelligence. We can't, like, I'm very careful when I say this. I'm kind of happy some of y'all that have social media platforms just have social media platforms. I'm glad some of y'all are not in the political realm. I'm glad some of y'all are not in the, I'm glad some of y'all are not in a position where you can really make a decision that could change an entire country or can change an entire state. I'm glad some of y'all are just on social media being influencers. I'm not trying to gatekeep nobody. I'm in no position to do that. But I do be thankful to God sometimes. Some of y'all are just social media influencers.
Everett, oh my God. I forgot to say this earlier, but we were talking about how everybody's so triggered. It's so funny because years ago, I was like that sensitive person who, if you said something that slightly offended me, I was going to cancel you because I'm like, oh my God, you need to be mindful of everyone. Now I'm like, I cannot possibly deal with how soft everyone has become. So I have a question. I have something else I have to say though, so don't let me forget.
That's cool.
But how is it? Okay, how did we get here? Like, because we were talking about having the emotional intelligence to be able to disagree with someone and not get offended. You can agree to disagree, but you can't say anything. You can't say anything nowadays. You literally will get canceled. We don't even have to be famous to be canceled. Like, because this can happen in your workplace as well, where people literally are afraid to speak up because, God forbid, you disagree with somebody and you're not being careful of someone's feelings. It's like, oh, Jesus Christ. Like, no, I can't. How somebody reacts to something you say is a reflection of their inner world. Not what I said, their inner world. It's a reflection of, do they know their identity? Because you can tell me something about me, but I know who I am. I'm not going to get offended, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think this goes back to, again, herd mentalities. People are so afraid of standing out alone and shaking the ground and being trailblazers because they don't want to make anybody uncomfortable. But most leaders, most people of influence had to lose a lot of people to get to where they are. And that is because they're not afraid to stand out alone. You asked me earlier, like, about my journey, and my God, if I look back to my friend group back then and my friend group now, I went through a period of complete isolation because I was so into my own development that what wasn't resonating with me stayed back there, and what is found me now. But it's also because I know who I am. So it's like I have really high standards for the energies that I want around me, and that's the people I attract. Earlier, you said, how can you change? Hold on. Oh, okay. So being a leader, giving people the tools, but not shoving anything down their throat, right? Just giving them the tools. I was struggling with a certain relationship in my life at a point in time, and my friend who is, oh my God, so developed in his spiritual practice was like, Val, you cannot force anybody to change. By you changing, people are going to say, what are you doing that's working? Because I want to try that out. And all you can do is say, here, I read this book and it really helped me. This is the suggestion. Let me know if you have any questions. Versus, all right, I'm going to tell you and you're going to do this and you're going to try that. And it's kind of like you're forcing the person to, grow in a way where they're not ready. You got to meet people where they're at, which is what we don't do either. We don't meet people where they're at.
Yep.
Oh my God, now I'm going to go on a tangent. Before getting into a conversation with anyone, we should all look at, where is this person on an emotional level? And do I need to get down there with them? The answer for me is always no. I'm seriously not going to stoop down anymore. It's like, please rise above to my level and then we can have a conversation. Otherwise, it is not worth my energy to have a dialogue with you if you're not even going to understand or give me the benefit of the doubt when I'm speaking. And that's what people are doing. It's just so much. I want to, like, who's the loudest voice? Who's the loudest voice? Who's the highest ego? Because it's all about ego. And we don't meet people where they're at. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think that you were gonna ask me a question, but I have a couple questions to ask you. But then I'm gonna end it with you asking me a question. I want you to hold on to that question that you was gonna
I
ask
hope
me.
what it was.
So as somebody who's an ex cancel culture person, which I wouldn't have put that past you five years ago, because we were on good terms 5 years ago. You definitely would have been called out on this podcast. You started doing this podcast. You know, I would have been like, hold on, wait a minute now, wait a minute. Uh, but I wanted to ask you this, as somebody who's an ex cancel culture. When the job was done and I guess that person was canceled, did you emotionally feel any better, or was it like you felt
Depleted. You feel depleted. You're like, wow, I just spent all this energy arguing with someone or like justifying something for what? And it just made me realize the same way that I'm allowed to say something, somebody can say something else and we don't have to agree. Like, if it's something offensive to me, I can let that emotion go, right? This is what we don't do. We feel emotions and then we react out of those emotions. We don't need to be our emotions, meaning if you say something that angers me, I am not going to respond as the anger that I am feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes total sense. It makes total sense.
People don't take a second to think before they speak. So they're triggered and they're responding and they're reactive out of that emotion. Mm-hmm. And so at that point I was very emotionally immature. Therefore, if you triggered me, we're going at it. Because I'm angry, so my anger is speaking. Now, I don't want to feel angry, so I take a deep breath and I say, well, you're allowed to say that. And so am I. And we're good.
Yep. And I want to commend you for, one, being transparent and admitting that you was on that side doing that. And two, I wanted to also let you know that it takes a lot of guts, especially in this era, for somebody to even say, hey, I was wrong for doing this. Hey, this made me feel this way. And you know, I'm trying my best to, you know, be better, mature, and correct it. So, you know, hey, it's the tales of an ex-cancel culture. What can I say? She better now. She delivered. She better now. It's all good. But, you had a question that you wanted to ask me.
I forgot, and I don't know if it had to do with the triggers. Things you should see my notebook. It literally has a bunch of notes because when I hear you speak, something will come to me, but then we continue. So I honestly forgot. I know it had to do with like when we're triggered, but it slipped my mind. So I'll let you ask another.
I'll say this, and Valentina, I'll let you close out with the last couple statements. I think that when we decide to be triggered about something, we need to ask ourselves, where is this trigger coming from? What part of our childhood is this trigger coming from? And also, did I resolve what 10-year-old me went through, what 15-year-old me went through, what 20-year-old me went through, what 25-year-old me went through? Did I resolve that? Did I resolve what 35-year-old me went through? Did I resolve it? Or did I just hold on to it and I never resolved it? These are common things that we have to ask ourselves. I'm not saying publicly ask it, because some people, it's not their business, but around your friend group that you trust and around yourself, and also talking to God, what are some of the things that you are dealing with that made you get triggered so quick? So that is something I would suggest. And Val, yep.
I love that closing question, Everett, so much. So closing words for the people who are on their journey to find their identity. I think the most important thing is getting in touch with what your values are and identifying what those values are, so that everything that you do in your life
is in alignment with those core values. And that's something that you have to sit down and really think about, like, what do I identify as like the most important thing for me, whether it's honesty, transparency, loyalty, commitment, things like that. And then if something doesn't align with those values, let it go. Do not identify with it. Second, if you are trying to figure out where your wounds are coming from, all these triggers, sit with the emotions that come up during certain moments where you're feeling something in your body and see, like, where am I feeling this energy and why am I feeling this? And something that helps me is like journaling, because once I really start getting things from up here onto a piece of paper, it really helps me identify where that's coming from. But I wouldn't have gotten this, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for my therapist, who also helped me how to channel all these energies. So if you don't have a therapist, it's also okay to find one. And I highly encourage everybody needs a therapist. Every single person needs a therapist, because there's no way that you can figure out everything that's going on up here on your own. That, and having a community, an anchor, friends that are really there to support you during this time of you trying to figure out who you are, because it could also be a very isolating time where you are questioning everything around you, or everything around you could be falling apart and you have no idea what the next step is. And not everybody is going to be in support of that version of you, and some are. So making sure that you have friends who can be your anchor during this time. So therapy, digging deep in a support system. And honestly, guys, enjoy the ride, because the path to self-discovery and self-actualization, it is the most exciting one, because that's when you realize that everything around us that we give so much importance to is not that important, and we are just here as these right now physical beings on a spiritual journey to remember who we are at the core. So yeah, Everett, thank you so much for having me on the show. Amazing talk, amazing topics. Like, this was absolutely perfect. Thank you.
Yep, absolutely. Well, Valentina, first off, I want to thank you so much for coming on to the show. I
Oh,
appreciate it. Yeah, I appreciate it. I thank you so much for coming on the show. And you always welcome to come back anytime.
thanks. Awesome topic today, Everett.
Yep, absolutely. Well, with that being said, this has been another edition of Audio Airstrike. I appreciate you guys for listening. We'll be back with another one next week. All right? See you guys. Take care.